There he is.
Got it. Oh, let's go. There we go. Got it. Oh, it's a big one. Don't come off. Don't come off. Woo! Y'all check that one out right there. I'm gonna tell you what, that is why you flip these trees right here. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Back out on the water today. And as you can see behind me, we have a ton of standing timber. These are standing cypress trees. And whenever I see standing trees or any standing timber, I think about flipping soft plastics around the base of these trees and around any wood there is along the bank to catch big bass. So in today's video, we're gonna be talking about my setup, my rod and reel line, what my favorite lure is to flip around these trees, and then also about the technique itself and how to do it, so maybe I can help you all catch more bass. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna get started talking about my gear. Let's get into it. All right, so I'm gonna start off by talking about my rod, reel, line, and lure setup. And basically, it's pretty simple. I use a 7-foot medium heavy whenever I'm pitching around standing timber or around any wood. Some people might like a 7.3, and that's a preference. So I always say, you know, you're best off use between like a 7-foot and a 7.3. And whatever length you want to use is up to you. But I go with a 7-foot medium heavy fast rod. And this is the Lew's TP2. So this is the TP2 rod. And it's a really great rod, really good rod for the price, as a matter of fact. So be sure to check them out. But also the Lew's Pro SP in a 7:3:1 gear ratio, 20-pound test P-line fluorocarbon is my absolute favorite thing to use, my favorite line whenever I'm pitching around any wood. Fluorocarbon is really good because it has a lot of abrasion resistance, but it's also very strong and has very minimal stretch, so you get really good hook sets. And going back to the reel, this Lew's Pro SP, it doesn't hold a ton of line. It has a very shallow spool. So if you're only flipping and pitching around these trees, you don't need a spool full of line. So this thing only holds, I think, like maybe 50 yards, 40 or 50 yards of line. So that's really good, because once your line gets tore up, you know, or whatever, you retie a ton, you can re-spool this thing very fast when you're out on the water. So I really like that shallow spool. Now we're gonna get down to my absolute favorite bait whenever I'm pitching around trees, and that is a Strike King rage bug. If you watch my channel, you know that a rage bug is what I throw around this stuff 98% of the time. It is that high. I will pitch, you know, some straight tail worms sometimes and some different creature baits, but that rage bug will absolutely catch them, and that is what I throw all the time around this stuff. The vast majority, like I said, I switch up colors a little bit, but you can see here I have that Swamp Water blue tied on, which is what we're gonna pitch out here around these trees today. But the good old rage bug, you can use any creature bait you want, you know, and like I said, sometimes they like a straight profile, like a stick bait, or, you know, maybe even sometimes I'll even pitch a finesse worm if the fish are being a little bit funny. But you know, the rage bug or some type of creature bait is definitely what I recommend. Of course, you can pitch a jig, something like that, whatever you want, but rage bug's #1 for me. 9 times out of 10, I pitch that on a 3/8 ounce tungsten weight. So 3/8 ounce, I think that's the perfect weight. You know, you can go lighter to a 1/4 ounce if you want. You can go heavier to a 1/2 ounce if you want a little bit faster fall rate. But around these trees through all the years, 3/8 ounce is what I like. It's really easy to pitch. It gives a good fall rate, and just, it's a good like middle of the line weight there. It's not too heavy, it's not too light. Gives that good fall rate on a creature bait. If I am pitching a straight tail worm, I will go to a 1/4 ounce on that. So that's the little caveat for me, because a straight tail worm is gonna have a lot faster fall than say a creature bait. So 1/4 ounce gives it that fall that I want. But a lot of times what you're doing when you're pitching around these trees, it's a reaction bite. It's a feeding bite a lot of times too, but a lot of times it's that reaction bite. They're sitting at the base of the tree, boom, this thing comes by, and just out of reaction, they slurp it up and they bite it. So you want a decent fall rate, you know, so that's why I like the 3/8 ounce. Like I said, 1/2 ounce is when I, you know, maybe I'm pitching around like lily pads or hydrilla or something, and I need to actually be able to punch down through it. But when you're, you know, flipping around these trees and pitching around the bases, you don't really need something with some weight to really fall through anything. So 3/8 ounce is what I use most of the time. And then I have that bobber stopper on there. Y'all can see that bobber stopper above my weight. And what that does, that keeps that weight close to your bait. You can see it doesn't allow my weight to get away from it, because a lot of times, you know, these cypress roots, they're easy to get hung in. And if your weight gets away from your creature bait or your worm, whatever you're pitching around them, a lot of times it tends to get wedged a lot more and gets hung up easier. So I definitely recommend using a bobber stopper, you know, whenever you're using this technique. So that's my setup, plain and simple. I mean, very, very easy, nothing crazy. You know, this setup of mine that I pitch around is, it's under $300. This rod's like between $100 and $129, and this reel I think is right around 200 bucks. So, you know, around a $300 combo, nothing crazy, and you don't even need a combo that expensive. You can definitely go cheaper. You know, this is just what I use, so I wanted to let y'all know. But what we're gonna do, we're gonna stand up here on the front. We're up here on a stretch with some really good trees. We're gonna start pitching around these bases, and I'm gonna talk about kind of how I find fish on these stretches, what I look for, and what, you know, how you kind of figure them out on these trees. Because a lot of times it's easy to think that they all look alike, and a lot of times they do, but these fish will get on certain trees and certain distances off the bank, you know, on the sunny side, on the cloudy side. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to get a little bit more in depth. So let's get on the front of the boat and let's get to fishing. All right, so we just pulled up to some trees, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over the actual technique of pitching a soft plastic or a jig around trees. And one thing that makes this technique so effective is you're able to cover a lot of water, and you're able to be very, very precise. As you can see on these trees right here to my right, they have a ton of bushy, basically briars and brush all at the base of them where the limbs come out. So you have to be very precise when you're pitching around these. And you know, when you pitch a lure up to the base of these trees, you have a very low trajectory, and you're able to get up underneath this stuff. So we're going to go over the technique a little bit so you all can learn how to do this and become a more effective angler when you're fishing around this standing timber. All right, so as far as the technique goes, it's very easy once you learn how to do it, but in the beginning, it can be a little bit challenging. So what I would recommend doing is going out in your yard, putting a bucket, you know, out in your yard somewhere, or putting a target and getting on a slightly elevated position. I used to do it off a picnic table when I was a kid, and just get up there and just practice and practice and practice until you get good with it. But the basics of how to do this is you want the amount of line out. The amount of line you want is where it comes down and it hangs right beside your reel. So I have the line hanging. This lure and this weight is right at my reel. What that allows is that allows the correct amount of line out to where you can pendulum that weight like a pendulum out towards your target. So right here, I have it at my reel, and I never hold my bait. That's one thing I want to kind of emphasize. If you hold your bait, you might put that hook in your hand. I always like to hold right above my bait, like kind of on the weight. So I kind of like to pinch above my weight, or sometimes I'll hang it over my finger like that right there. But you want to take it and you just want to pitch it out there, just like that. Nice and slow, nice and soft. You don't want to sling it out there hard. And you can, once you get better at it, you can do that. But you want to come up here, pendulum it out. So if you noticed, I had a really good soft entry. So the way you get that soft entry is when you pitch it up there, as soon as your bait is about to hit the water, you stop your spool. You put your thumb on your spool. So here, and I locked it down right there with my thumb right at that moment. So we're gonna back up a little bit. The water today is pretty high, so a lot of these trees actually have more water on them than normal. But we're gonna go along this bank and I'm gonna talk about kind of why I pick certain trees out and kind of figure out a pattern on these trees. But like I said, you want your line right here with your reel. I prefer to have my reel handle straight too. That's something else. You don't want your reel handle like this because it can kind of hit your hand. So I do prefer my reel handle to be straight so it's not in the way. But right there, and you just pitch it up there around the base of that tree, nice and slow, nice soft entry around it so you don't spook that fish if he's sitting up there, because if you splash too hard, you will spook that fish. If he's in a really aggressive mood, he'll probably just thump it. You know, if he's really aggressive, you're not going to really spook him. But, you know, for the most part, you want to have a good soft entry around the base of that tree. And doing this technique and in regarding to pitching and flipping around the base of these trees, you're able to, you're able to put a lot of cast around the base of these trees very fast. If I was just coming up like roll casting them or, just regular casting around them, for one thing, my accuracy wouldn't be as good, but also I would not be able to put as many presentations around the base of these trees. So by doing this, I'm able to get it in quick, I'm able to pitch back up there, and I'm able to make a lot of different presentations around these trees. So now we're going to talk about kind of patterning fish on these trees and what you need to look for as far as how to fish them and how to catch fish and how to establish a pattern on these trees. All right, so now we're going to talk about how to establish a pattern on standing trees and standing timber. So like I said, kind of towards the beginning of the video, a lot of times you look at it and you're like, all this stuff looks the same. And I used to think the same thing, honestly, until I fished it a ton. But you can see this tree right here over my shoulder. It has no briars and nothing bushy around it, okay? If you look kind of beyond me or closer to the bank and some trees on beyond me, a lot of those have briars and limbs that hang low to the ground. So let's say I'm fishing along a shoreline that has a few trees like this that don't have a lot of stuff around the bottom, but several other trees do have, low-hanging limbs and briars around the bottom. If I get bit on the trees that have the limbs and briars and I don't get bit on the naked trees, basically the ones that have nothing around them, that is the beginning of establishing a pattern. So then I can focus more on those particular trees that have the low-hanging limbs and the briars. So let's say some trees have cypress knees around them, and then some don't have cypress knees. If I'm getting bit on the ones that have cypress knees and the ones that don't have cypress knees I'm not getting bit on, then I need to focus on the trees that have cypress knees and find shorelines that are very, very similar to that and have the same type of trees on them. That's how you go about establishing a pattern. The same thing goes for the sun. So if you're catching fish on the shady side of trees and not on the sunny side, that is how you establish a pattern. So let's say I got bit on a bushy tree with no cypress knees on the sunny side. And then the next fish I caught was the same thing. And then the next fish I caught was the same thing. And say I'd fished 20 or 30 yards between trees until I got two that were very similar, but I caught fish, only on that particular type of tree with that particular type of shade line. That is a pattern. So what you need to do, you need to go and look for the same thing on other shorelines. The same thing goes for depth. So let's say I'm getting bit on these inside trees right here that are in 3 foot of water, and I'm not getting bit on the outside trees that are in 5 foot of water, or vice versa. That is a pattern. And when you put all these things together, that's how you establish a really good pattern of fishing standing timber and fishing trees. Because if you just go along and just fish trees, and you're saying, well, they all look the same and they're all the same, you're not going to catch as many fish and you're not going to catch as many big fish when you're fishing this type of cover. Because let's face it, standing timber, cypress trees, cypress knees, they hold big fish, and you can catch a ton of big fish using this technique. But you have to figure out what trees, what depth, what type of trees All of that, you have to figure out that so you can establish a pattern, especially when you're in a tournament. If you're fun fishing, you know, you can just kind of fish along and it's all good. But if you're fishing a tournament, you have to really break things down and figure out that pattern. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go along, we're gonna do a little bit of fishing. We're gonna pitch around the base of these trees. We're gonna see if we can catch a couple fish using the old rage bug. And we're gonna see if we can kind of establish some kind of pattern and figure out what trees these fish are on. So let's get to it. Let's do a little bit of fishing. All right, so this particular shoreline that I'm on is a really good one. Water temps are 79 degrees. So we have 79-degree water temps. So really good water temps. You know, really in the summer, a lot of times I focus more on the outside trees that are a little bit deeper, because typically the fish will get off those shallower trees like they're on in the spring, and they'll get out on the little bit deeper trees. But being that the water is high today, and it's probably about 2 foot higher than normal, I'm gonna start off focusing on a little bit more of these inside trees, more so than the outside trees, and we'll see if we get bit. If we do, then, you know, we'll say, okay, you know, we got something going and we kind of got them figured out. If we don't, then we might have to jump to a different shoreline that has trees further offshore, closer to a channel, and that have a little bit more depth on them. So we're gonna see if we can get bit pitching around here. And, you know, right here, this area right here, of this particular tree, I don't know if y'all can tell, but this tree juts out further than all the others. And there's several more trees down the bank that stick out further than the others. And a lot of times, that's where fish will set up, especially in like current situations. We don't have a ton of current right now. It looks like the wind has probably pushed some water back in here because there's not a lot of outgoing current and a lot of, you know, just flow going out. But especially in those situations, a tree that sets out like this right here, 9 times out of 10, it's gonna have a fish on it. It's gonna have a fish on it because they're gonna set up on that downstream side of it, and they're gonna sit there and be ready to feed. But it definitely could still have one on it. So we're gonna see if we can pick one up on this rage bug and catch one doing, I mean, this is, I like frogging, you know, of course, and buzz bait and all that. But truly, flipping and pitching around trees and around timber was one of my favorite techniques to do when I was younger. And it's still up there as one of my favorites. So we're gonna see if we can get a big one. Oh, there's
you got one.
There we go. My camera woman is back there spraying herself with sunscreen, but we just got the first fish flipping right here. Little guy, but pitched up there to that tree, and he came up and ate it. We're gonna try to get some bigger ones, but we're gonna throw him back. First fish on the old rage bug right there, flipping around these trees. So thank you, my guy. Let's see if we can get another one. There he is. Got it. Oh, here we go. Not a big one, but we just pulled up here and I actually got bit on a outside tree and missed him, and just came right back to this little inside tree right here. Not a big one, but once again, and that's a bushy tree. Show them that tree that I caught it on right there, that tree. So flipped up under there, way up under, and that fish bit it. So we're gonna throw him back. We're still gonna see if we can get a big one, but I just came back down. I fished a long stretch of shoreline and did not get bit. And I got bit kind of on this initial shoreline where I started. So I came back up here. The first 2 trees I flipped, I've gotten bit on. So let's see if we can get a big one and maybe get a big one flipping. That's what we're hoping for. Maybe we can end the video with a whole big head. That's what we want. All right, so every bite that I've gotten today has been on an outermost tree. So the trees that were further out from the bank and furthest out towards the deeper water are the trees that I've gotten bit on. So now when I'm going back down the shoreline, I'm only focusing on the trees that are further out from the bank. And I just pulled back up here, got bit pretty quick. So we're gonna continue on with that, and hopefully we can get one more good one. But definitely that seems to be the pattern. Bushy trees out off the bank, the furthest most trees out off the bank are the ones that have the fish. So let's keep going with that pattern. Maybe we can get a big one. Oh, one of my legs that I got torn off. Oh well, I'm not. Yes. Got it. Oh, it's a big one. Oh, it's a giant. Oh my God, it's a big one. Oh, yes. Don't come off. Don't come off. Don't come off. I don't have my net out.
Where is yours?
I'm gonna see if I can lift him. Oh, don't come off, please. Got him. Woo! Y'all check that one out right there. I'm gonna tell you what, that is why you flip these trees right here. That's an absolute beauty. Got him on that rage bug. This is pushing a 5-pounder, 100%. Bushy trees on the outside. Show them that tree. That is an outside tree, outside. That was the pattern today. I'm gonna tell y'all what, I'm gonna kick the trolling motor around just so we get the sun on them a little teeny bit better. But man, what a beautiful, beautiful fish. Trying to get this thing turned around for y'all so we can get the sun so y'all can see how pretty he is. There he is right there. Y'all check that out. Such a pretty fish. We're gonna let him go. Man, what a nice one. All right, check that dude out. I don't think he wants to jump. I like it when they jump for us, but oh, he's gonna do it. Oh, what a thrash. All right, y'all, well, I'm gonna tell you what. You need to flip, you need to pitch around these trees, and you too can catch some big ones. All the links to my tackle are linked down in the description below. I appreciate it so much. Like I said, if your body of water has trees, get on them, do some flipping, you'll catch some big ones. I appreciate it so much. Be sure to like and subscribe, share this video with your friends, and I will see you next time on Gunfish TV.